Where is Jesus? Where is God? In this crisis time, I feel like this is the question. And I point this out to all of you every week, but you have to understand that I am preaching from the context of the epicenter of failure to prevent over 20,000 deaths in our city. This morning, I woke early to join a vigil. We gathered from across the country to call out the names we know and to evoke the names God knows, and we don't. To evoke these names of the people who have fallen victim in this time. I started reading names around name 7,200. And for my part, most times I called the names of people in their 90s, even hundreds. People like George Possas, 93, from Long Island, New York. Philip Kahn, 100, from Long Island, New York. Peter Petrassi, from Long Island, New York. Susan Long, Long Island, New York. Rodolfo Pataiho Bunsal, 84, Manhasset, New York. Carlos Cruz, New York. Marie Modnanzinga, 85, from Massapequa, New York. Ida Esposito, 92, Melville, New York. Many of these people whose names we read were coming from nursing homes. And naming the people who, of all kinds of reasons, are out of view in their convalescence, I think is really, really important because their vulnerability needs to be top of mind for all of us, and they deserve to be seen. But I also read these names. Advaith Sunish, age 8, New York. King Shooter, 25, New York. Alison Schwartz, 29, New York. Rana Zoe Mungin, 30, New York. Andre Lulovich, 31, New York. Dione Diaz, 33, New York. Kimberly Wen, 33, New York, amongst so many others. And I read the name of an 8-year-old who didn't need to die, and so many others here in our beloved city. And whatever else I have to say today, I dedicate to Sunish and to all the others who were slain. Where's Jesus? Maybe it's time for some Bible study. So our text today takes us to the close of Luke's gospel. And if you've been following along, you know that scholars believe that Luke's narrative continues into the book of Acts. But in chapter 24, we aren't there yet. And the gospel packs a lot of information into this concluding chapter. And it starts with the women. They went to the tomb and they found it empty. But the patriarchy didn't believe them, as usual. They proclaimed the gospel and no one would listen because there wasn't a man to back them up yet, as usual. Jesus himself showed up on a street corner and then started walking with 2 followers who couldn't even see him, as usual. Their eyes were opened in the breaking of the bread. Yet, how many of us would never even get to the point of breaking bread with Jesus? Maybe that's a different sermon. But take a look at Luke 24, because there's so much there. This week, we're focused on that last part. Where is Jesus? I guess I would say Jesus is in the building. Jesus is in the sanctuary, your sanctuary, with social distancing and just you and your family. You could get, the part of the family you could get into the room. Jesus is with the ones you couldn't get in the room to. Where is Jesus? Jesus is on the subway when they clear it out of our friends who rely on it for sleep and relief. Jesus is in the clinic with the test results that disappoint or scare us. Jesus is on the ambulance with the siren that blares still all day, even though they tell us the hospitalizations are down. Jesus is right there in your room, your bedroom, your office, your struggle place, the place where you go where it's so hard to produce, even if you're a great producer other times. Jesus is on the truck you drive. in your delivery box or bag, in your complaint and the briefs that follow it up. Jesus is in your grant application, your plea for unemployment. Jesus is in your PPP application and its rejection too, helping you to think through next steps. And how do I know this? And how could I make these claims? Because I pay attention to certain endings. And another ending, this time to the Gospel of Matthew, says, "And lo, I am with you always, even unto the ends of the earth." And accordingly, I take Jesus at his word, and I will trust in the Lord till I die. And I don't know when that day will come, but please, God, let it be after I have done my part, after I've offered my portion, after I have fulfilled my calling, and that is my prayer for you. You may not see Jesus. I know I don't so much of the time, and I'm looking, I'm searching, I'm frustrated. Then I take a step back, and I remember that Jesus already told us where to find him. Not staring towards the sky, what will we see if we keep our heads up like that? But here in the land of the living. In the Imago Dei, which means the image of God, reflected as in Matthew 25, in the least of these. And whatever we do, wherever we go, if we want to find Jesus, we look to the least of these. Even if it brings us discomfort, even if it asks things of us that we think we're unwilling to do, but know we should. If we're wondering where Jesus is, we go to the edge. Listen. I know times have been tough, and they may even have been unimaginably tough for you. If you're having a hard time finding Jesus, then it may be that you've been taught to find him in the wrong places. You've probably been taught to find Jesus in the center of the frame. But Jesus never ministered center frame. Instead, peer stage left, look to the corner, the margin. Look where he's bringing life and light to the people who've been laid off or have no contracts. Look where Jesus is multiplying loaves and fishes in spaces where everyone assumed there was nothing left. That and there, my friends, is where we find Jesus. In Luke 24, the disciples who encountered Jesus on the street couldn't see him. They couldn't recognize him because they were paralyzed by their own expectations. We can't let ourselves fall victim to the same. Break bread. Let your eyes be open. Watch the ascension of Christ as an opening to constant dialogue. Because Jesus is in the building. Jesus is in your space, in the bread, in the prayers. God already promised never to abandon you. Are you ready to encounter Christ face to face? I hope to God that I am. Amen.